Hello and welcome to my channel Happy Hours. In my last video, I discussed about the committees for the center-state relations, in which I discussed about the Stitlward Committee, Rajamannar Committee, Sarkaria Commission and Punchi Commission, and about the union territories. In this video, I am going to discuss about the local self-government, panchayat and municipalities, about the decentralization in India before and after independence. So, what are we waiting for? Let's jump to the first topic, which is local self government. In India, we got local self government in two levels. First, in the rural level, and the second, in the urban level. The rural level, the institutions are termed as Panchayati Raj, whereas in urban level, it is termed as the municipal bodies. Both together are known as the institutions of democratic decentralization. Now let us understand the evolution of decentralization in India. Let's first discuss about the philosophical traditions. In India, decentralization is discussed in the broad way, whereas in other countries it is in brief. The very first philosophical tradition is Dharmasastra tradition. In Manusmriti, Rajyam Samagraham is mentioned. That is, the whole country is to be divided into different levels. A problem or an issue which arises at the level needs to be solved at that level only. If it is not solved at that level, then only it should be referred to the other level. Next one is Arthashastra tradition, which deals with governance in India. It deals with polity. It contains different volumes, and it was the finest book on statecrafts, written by Kautilya. He talked about the seven element, which is also known as Saptanga theory, and one of the element is Janpada. According to most of the historians who have interpreted the Arthashastra, one Janpad consists of nearly 800 grams, means 800 villages. There were officers appointed by the king at the different levels, designated as sthaniks, gramiks, gopas, etc. We can see the elements of decentralization present here. Next is the Gandhian tradition. Gandhiji gave the concept of Gram Swaraj, that is, each village ought to be a republic and decision making has to be from below. Gandhiji talked about Swaraj, and there were three types of Swaraj according to him. First is rule over oneself, second, the political freedom, and the third is the Gram Swaraj. Now let us discuss about the next topic, which is the decentralization under the British rule. Lord Ripon, in his report sent to British government, held that vast country like India may be governed from above, but it cannot be administered from above. He had recommended for the establishment of local bodies in the urban areas, consisting of officials as well as non-official members. The number of non-official members to be more than the number of official members, and he was known as the father of local self-government in India. Next is the decentralization after independence. Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar was against the Panchayati Raj. He was having the view that the caste emanates in the villages, and if we strengthen the Panchayati Raj system to strengthen the Panchayat, then it will mean that we are strengthening the caste system. So the middle path was adopted and two clauses were added in the article number 40 of the Constitution, which provides for organization of panchayats, and secondly, the panchayat was added or incorporated in the state list. Decentralization after the commencement of Constitution. It was on 2nd October 1952 the first step was taken towards the decentralization. The Community Development Program was launched. Here blocks were established as units of development administration. In 1953, the National Extension Service was launched to substantiate the CDP, which is also known as Community Development Program. Under it, extension officers were appointed in different fields like health, agriculture, education, rural infrastructure, irrigation, etc., to assist the BDO, who is the Block Development Officer. The objective of these two programs was rural development and planning from below. Basically, these were not successful because it was expected that there will be cooperation from the low level, but that did not happen. People involved participated, but they found that the officers were not interested. They were paid but not working properly. There was lack of resources, and so the objective of the people and the objective of the government get deferred. So what government did that in 1957, government appointed the Balwant Rai Mehta Committee to look into the working of the CDP and NES and to give suggestion to strengthen the decentralization in India. He suggested the committee held that there should be established structure local study elective bodies. It recommended three-tier structure of the PRIs, Panchayati Raj institution. First is Jila Parishad at the apex, which is the district level. Second, Panchayat Samitis in the intermediate level, which is the block, and the Gram Panchayat at the village level. The term of the Panchayat to be of 5 years. The members of the Gram Panchayat to be directly elected by the people. Some tax subjects should be delegated to the Panchayat bodies like house tax, sanitation tax, taxes on local weekly markets, taxes on dead animals, etc. These were the recommendations by the Balwant Rai Mehta Committee. It was another 2nd October 1959 that the first panchayat was set up in Nagaur district, Rajasthan. Second was in the Andhra Pradesh to adopt the Panchayati Raj system. It was in the year 1977. The Committee on PRIs, headed by Ashok Mehta, was appointed to give recommendations to revisit revitalize the PRIs. Some major recommendations are: first, the two-tier structure of the PRI, with Jila Parishad at the apex and Mandal Panchayat, which is going to club together the number of villages. The concept of Gram Panchayat was diluted by Ashok Mehta Committee. The term of panchayats to be 4 years. Participation of political parties in the panchayat election. Reservation of scheduled castes, scheduled tribes and women in the panchayat bodies. Creation of Nyay Panchayat, which should be different from the development panchayat. There should be specialized body to conduct the panchayat elections, or the Election Commission of India should be given the responsibility of conducting the panchayat election. In 1978, conference of CM was held where he got the opportunity to conduct the Panchayati Raj in the state. In 1984, Committee on District Planning was appointed, which was headed by C. Hanumant Rao. The committee recommended that minister should be in charge of district planning and the collector play an important role in the district planning process. The PRIs to be involved in the district planning process. It was the year 1986 the L.M. Singhvi Committee was appointed. They recommended the constitutional status to the PRIs, that is, a separate chapter should be added in the constitution with respect to the panchayat. The Thangan Committee, which was parliamentary subcommittee, also recommended for the constitutional status for the panchayat, and it was set up in the year 1988, 2 years after the L.M. Singhvi Committee. In 1989, the 64th Amendment Bill was passed in Lok Sabha but not passed by Rajya Sabha, so the bill was backfired. or we can say the vision for panchayat was for constitution did not get accepted. In the year 1992, the 73rd and 74th Amendment Acts were passed. They gave constitutional status to the Panchayati Raj and the municipal bodies. 73rd Amendment Act gives constitutional status to the local bodies in the rural areas. It added the Part 9 and Part 10 schedule in the Constitution. Part 9 contains provisions with respect to Panchayati Raj institutions like their constitution, duration, reservation, election, etc. Whereas the 11th schedule contains the power and responsibilities to be delegated to the Panchayat bodies. It contains 29 subjects. The 74th Amendment Act given constitutional status to the urban areas, means to the municipalities. It added Part 9A and 12th schedule in the Constitution. Part 9A contains provisions with respect to municipalities like their constitution, duration, reservation, election, etc. The Schedule 12 gives the powers and responsibilities which are going to be delegated to the municipal bodies, and it contains 18 subjects. Now let us understand the salient features of 73rd Amendment Act or Part 9. There are two types of provisions. First is mandatory and the second one is discretionary. We are going to understand one by one. Let us discuss about the mandatory provision. It provides for the Gram Sabha, article number 243A. Constitution of the Panchayat, which is under the article number 243B, provides for a three-tier structure of the PRIs for the states having population of more than 20 lakhs, which was according to the Balwant Rai Committee suggestion. For the states having a population up to 20 lakhs, the intermediate level may not be there, so the block will be absent. It is in the pyramidal form. Next, the reservation, which is described in the article number 243D. Seats to be reserved in every panchayat for the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. Secondly, at least 1/3 of the reserved seat should be reserved for the women belonging to the reserved category, scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. Thirdly, at least 1/3 of the total seats, including the reserved seats, to be reserved for the women. And fourth, the reservation in the post of chairman, sub-chairman for the scheduled castes, scheduled tribes and women. Lastly, at least 1/3 officers of the chairpersons to be reserved for the women. Next is duration of the panchayats under the article number 243E. The term is 5 years. A panchayat can be dissolved by the state government before the end of its term. An election to constitute a panchayat to be completed before the expiry of its duration. An election to constitute a dissolved panchayat before the expiry of the period of 6 months from the date of the dissolution. A panchayat constituted upon a dissolution of a panchayat before the expiry of its dissolution shall continue only for the remainder for the period of which the dissolved panchayat would have continued had it not been so dissolved. Next is the State Finance Commission, which is under the article number 243I. The State Finance Commission is to be constituted by the governor of the state at the expiry of every 5 years. Now, what are the duties of the Finance Commission? First is to review the financial position of the panchayat. Secondly, to make recommendation to the governor with respect to the principles which should govern. In this, we are having 3 parts. First is distribution between the state and panchayats, the net proceeds of the taxes, duties, tolls and fees collected by the state. Secondly, the determination of taxes, duties, tolls and fees to be assigned to the panchayats. And thirdly, the grants in aid to be given to the panchayats from the consolidated fund of India, of state. Next is the elections, which is under the article number 243K, which deals with the panchayat elections, and it should be conducted by the State Election Commission. State Election Commission is a single member body. The State Election Commissioner to be appointed by the governor of the concerned state, but can be removed by the same manner and on the same grounds as the judge of the High Court is removed. Now let us discuss about the discretionary provisions. The nomenclature given to the different levels of the panchayat bodies and the chairpersons of these bodies. The nominations of eminent persons including the local MP, MLAs and MLC in the different levels of the panchayat bodies. The powers and responsibilities including that of taxation to be delegated to the panchayat bodies. The provisions of Part 9 are not applicable to the following areas. The first is scheduled area, the tribal area, as mentioned in the article number 244(1) and 2. The states of Nagaland, Meghalaya and Mizoram. The hill areas in the state of Manipur, for which the district councils exist. Nothing in the Part 9 relating to the panchayats at the district level applies to hill areas of the district of Darjeeling, which is in West Bengal, because their Gorkha Council exists. Now, let us discuss about the Part 9A municipality. First, the constitution of municipalities, which is described in the article number 243Q. It is not having any pyramidal structure. It is having the three types. First is the Nagar Panchayat for the urban area in the transition from a rural area. Secondly, a municipal council for a smaller urban area. And thirdly, the municipal corporation for a large urban area, where the population is more than 3 lakh, which is also known as Nagar Nigam in Hindi. It is all a statutory body and it is created by an art of legislation. The article number 243S, it deals with the wards committee. Article number 243ZD deals with the district planning committee, and the article number 243ZE, which deals with the metropolitan planning committee. Now let us discuss about the implications of 73rd and 74th Amendment Acts. It has led to the constitutionalization of the institutions of the grassroots democracy. It has led to strengthening of democracy at the grassroots level. 73rd Amendment Act provides for the Gram Sabha, which is like a village assembly, through which the participants of the villages is ensured in policy making process. The age to contest the panchayat election is the 21 years, which allows the youth to take part in policy making process at a very early age. The members of the Gram Panchayats as well as the municipalities are elected by the people on the basis of universal adult suffrage. It has led to gender empowerment. The acts under consideration provides for the reservation of women in the local bodies, which has enabled the women to take part in the policy making process. Reservation for women is no doubt a step towards the silent revolution, as the women in the society have been subject to systemic exploitation. Though the Act holds that at least 1/3 of the seats to be reserved for women, but it has been observed that some of the states have reserved 50% of seats for women in the local body, like in Delhi and Bihar. It has led to functional decentralization. After acts under consideration come into force, the states have delegated various powers and responsibilities to the local bodies. The PRIs have been given the powers and responsibilities with respect to minor irrigation, animal husbandry, dairying, fisheries, drinking water, rural electrification and market and fairs, sanitation, maintenance of community assets, etc. The urban level bodies have been given the responsibilities with respect to town planning, water supply, public health, sanitation, slum improvement, registration of birth and death, burial and burial grounds, crematorium, parking lots, etc. Apart from these, the local bodies also implements different government schemes like Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, and they also act as watchdog bodies for the implementation of various government schemes like NRHM, which is the National Rural Health Mission, Midday Meal Scheme, etc. It has led to financial decentralization. First is the tax subjects have been delegated to the local bodies by the state government. The State Finance Commission to look into the financial position of the local bodies. Next is the challenges of Panchayati Raj institution. Gram Sabhas exist on the paper only in most of the states. There is a lack of resources, lack of training on the part of Panchayati Raj institution representatives, corruption which is rampant in local body. The reservation of women is no doubt a step towards the silent revolution, but in most of the cases it has been seen that their functions are discharged by their male relatives. There has revolved a concept like MP, SP, SB, PP, symbolizing MP as Mukhyapati, SP as Sarpanchpati, SB as Sarpanch Beta, and PP as Pradhanpati. Now, as a concluding remarks, I can say the local bodies, especially the panchayat, have an important role to play in rural development. The concept of decentralization and panchayat is not to be considered on merely a structure, but it has to be considered as an ideal to be achieved. No amount of legal reform will be sufficient if there is no political will on the part of the state government to implement the legal provisions related to the panchayat, as panchayat is the subject of the state laws. Now the next one is the panchayat extension to the scheduled area 1996, which is also known as PESA, PESA. It is popular as PESA Act, some special legal rights which have been given to the tribal areas under the 5th schedule. It is a legislation which extends the provisions of panchayat to the scheduled areas. These areas have preponderance of the tribal population. Total 10 states are covered under PESA. These are Andhra Pradesh, Gujarat, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, Jharkhand, Maharashtra, Himachal Pradesh, Odisha, Rajasthan, and Telangana. All posts of chairpersons or of the PRIs, means Panchayati Raj institutions, in the areas covered under PESA are reserved for tribal community, and only the persons belonging to the tribal community contest for these posts. The legal powers given to the Gram Sabha or the Panchayati Raj institutions under the PESA, Panchayat Extension to the Scheduled Area Act, are: first is the safeguard and preserve traditions and customs of the people, their cultural identity, community, resources, and the customary mode of dispute resolution. Secondly, to approve plans, programs, and projects for social and economic development before their implementation. Thirdly, the identification or selection of persons as beneficiaries under the poverty alleviation programs and the other programs. Fourthly, the certification of utilization of funds by the panchayats. Fifth, right to be consulted before making acquisition of land in the scheduled areas for development project and before the resettling or rehabilitating the persons affected by such projects in the scheduled areas. Right to plan and manage minor water bodies in the scheduled areas. 7. The recommendations prior to the grants of prospective license mining lease for the minor areas. And the last one is the ownership of minor forest produce. The minor forest produce has been defined in the scheduled tribes and other traditional forest dwellers. Recognition of the Forest Rights Act 2006. These includes non-timber forests produced of plant origin like bamboo, brushwood, cane, tussar, honey wax, lac, tender leaves, medicinal leaves, etc. Power to enforce prohibition or to regulate, restrict sale and consumption of any intoxicants, and to power to manage village markets. Next is the power to prevent alienation of lands in the scheduled areas and to restore unlawfully alienated land of a scheduled tribe. Power to exercise control over money lending to the scheduled tribe. And the last one is the power to exercise control over institutions and functionaries in the all social sectors. By this, I am concluding my video. Thank you.